Some ghosts cling to earth in silence. Others whisper until the guilty are forced to listen. Tonight, beneath a bruised moon and the rotten gates of a forgotten camp, a man who once commanded fear will discover that true terror waits not in the past he buried, but in the memories that refuse to die. I used to believe the night had no hold over me. In the winter of 1945, I had patrolled the electrified fences of Großziegenlager in the dark, my leather boots crunching snow that hid blood. The screams that drifted across the yard were something I could command, a lever pulled here, a shout issued there, an obedient pistol report echoing off brick. Fear in others fashioned an armour around my own heart. But armour corrodes, slowly, invisibly, until one day the smallest scratch can pierce straight through. That day came 30 years later, when I returned to the abandoned camp under a borrowed name. It was past midnight by the time I slipped through the rusted gates. My false passport identified me as hair-brown antiques dealer, but the guard at the nearby village bar had never bothered to check. He merely warned that the ruins were dangerous, the buildings unstable. I thanked him, wrapped my coat tighter, and set out under a waning moon. What drew me back, I still cannot explain. Nostalgia? A final act of possession? Or the need to prove to myself that the ghosts were dead along with their bodies? Whatever the reason, here I was, shuffling down the gravel path once raked clean by prisoners' bare hands. The main barrack blocks stood like rotten teeth, windows jagged and empty. My breath plumed white. It seemed to linger too long, unwilling to fade. I crossed the parade ground toward the medical hut, where I had once inspected selections with clinical indifference. Wind hissed through cracked walls, sounding almost like voices. Keep walking, I told myself. There is nothing here but stone and decay. Just beyond the crematorium ruins, the moonlight caught something glinting by my shoe. At first, I thought it a bottle cap. I knelt, brushed away dust, and discovered a button, small, nickel-bright under centuries of residue. It was sewn to a strip of thin, blue and grey striped cloth, prisoners' pajamas. The instant my fingers closed around it, the cold seeped through my glove, up my arm, and settled on the back of my neck like a wet hand. A scent of singed hair and carbolic acid filled my nostrils. I staggered to my feet. Around me, the air thickened, as if the camp inhaled after decades of silence. A boy's voice, soft, almost polite, whispered behind my ear, "Herr Offizier, you dropped something." I spun, flashlight beam slicing empty darkness. No one. Only my pulse hammering like rifle bolts against my ribs. I fled toward the administration block. Footsteps followed at a measured pace. One set mine, the other lighter, barefoot on gravel, crunching glass. Each time I stopped, they stopped, but always one beat later. Inside the office, I slammed the warped door shut. Dust rose in lazy spirals. The flashlight trembled in my grip, illuminating the desk where prisoners' names had once been reduced to numbers. In the raw silence, I heard breathing, not my own. "Who's there?" My voice cracked. A silhouette emerged from the corridor. A youth, perhaps 17 when he died, wearing pajama trousers that billowed as though in a breeze. His chest and feet were bare, skin the colour of moon-bleached parchment. Yet his eyes were bright, living things. I recognized him. I had not known his name. Numbers were easier to forget. But I remembered the day he arrived, thin as wire, shivering beneath snow because I had ordered his coat confiscated. I tried to summon the old ruthlessness, the iron bark that used to silence fear. It abandoned me. "You," I said, but it came out as a plea. "Me," the boy agreed and stepped closer. The floorboards sighed under weightless feet. He raised a hand. The button I still held burned against my palm, The metal blistered my skin. I flung it away with a gasp, and it clattered against the ledger book I had once signed without thinking. Transit complete. Return it, he whispered. Give back what you took. I took nothing, I stammered, even as memory contradicted me. Valuables confiscated. Gold teeth pried loose. Hopes murdered for quotas. I backed into the hall. The corridor lengthened impossibly, doors multiplying like cells in a microscope. Behind each one echoed screams in languages buried beneath ash. My flashlight flickered, then died. In that darkness I felt hands brush my sleeves, gentle as petitioning children. When the light sputtered alive again, the boy stood inches away, head tilted. You don't remember my face, he said, so I've worn many faces for you. His features blurred, rearranged. Sunken cheeks became swollen contusions, eyes stitched shut, lips cracked from thirst. Every cruelty I had overseen paraded before me. I bolted. For 3 nights I wandered the camp, unable to escape. The gate I entered now opened onto fresh rows of barbed wire. Dawn never came. The sky remained locked in starless pre-dawn blue. Hunger gnawed, yet no fatigue claimed me. Only a mounting terror that I had died long ago and never noticed. Each building I entered contained some artifact of accusation. A child's shoe bleeding ash, spectacles with melted lenses, hair coiled like serpents, and always the boy waited, silent, patient. He led me once to the shower room. Showers that had never run water. As I crossed the threshold, pipes groaned, and a hiss of phantom gas spilled into the tiled chamber. My lungs seized with an acrid sweetness, but I could not die. That was his luxury, to kill without killing, to force me to feel the death I had meted out. Why? I begged, collapsing to my knees. Tears I had sworn never to shed scalded my cheeks. I was a soldier. I followed orders. Orders end, he said. Suffering lingers. Then he repeated a word, one word, over and over, until it became the only sound left in the universe. Remember. When at last I found myself outside the walls, morning sunlight shocked my eyes. The village road lay before me, real and solid. The camp behind appeared deserted, as though nothing had stirred in decades. Yet in my pocket, the striped cloth burned like ice. I reached the nearest police station, burst in, and declared my real name, rank, company, and crimes. The young constable thought me mad until I produced forged documents and recited dates and transport numbers with meticulous precision. Calls were made, files retrieved, handcuffs snapped around my wrists. And for the first time in 30 years, I felt warm. Every night in the cell, the boy stood at the bars, not to torment, but to watch, eyes unreadable. I spoke to him in low whispers, confessing details no tribunal would ever ask, how casual cruelty could taste like peppermint, how laughter at roll call drowned the music of pleas. Sometimes his face softened, other times it wept blood. Yet he said nothing. The trial was swift. Evidence long buried rose like corpses in thawing fields. Witnesses, now stooped, numbers still branded on their arms, looked upon me with a grief sharper than hatred. I accepted the verdict with a bowed head, death by firing squad. On the last night, I asked the priest for no absolution. I had learned absolution is a privilege of the living, and I was already half a ghost. I spent the hours writing names I could recall, only a handful among thousands, and for each name I pressed the striped cloth against my heart until skin blistered anew. At dawn, the guards led me to the courtyard. Fog clung to the stones. I was tied to a post, blindfold refused. I wanted to see the rifles, to meet the bullets like old acquaintances returning at last. The command rang out, shots cracked, impact spun me backward into darkness, but I did not fall. My senses flared open, Sight first. Before me stretched a plain of scorched earth under a lid of smoke, red as a dying furnace. Chains draped the horizon like spiderwebs. Towers of bone rose crooked against a sky that bled. Heat battered my skin, yet the wounds from the bullets burned cold, radiating outward in jagged stars. I understood. Around me shuffled figures, some in SS black, others in striped rags, yet all alike now in their nakedness and terror. They clambered toward a glowing pit where iron hooks descended on sinew cords, plucking souls like skewered birds and lifting them screaming into the flames. I recognized officers I had once saluted. Schmidt, who taught me to economize ammunition. Weber, who joked that ash made excellent fertilizer. Their mouths foamed as spined serpents wound through their ribs. Above them, suspended by barbed wire, hung the camp doctor, needles piercing his arms in a grotesque parody of crucifixion. He writhed, eyes gouged, yet weeping endless tears. A voice guided my gaze downward. There stood the boy, whole and small beside me, pajamas clean, button missing. He reached to take my hand. His touch was neither warm nor cold. It was absolute. Hell is memory, he told me, and memory is forever. In his other hand lay the little nickel button. He pressed it into the ragged hole the bullets had torn in my chest. Pain blossomed, exquisite in its clarity. I will remain, he said, until every name is spoken, until every silence is filled. I tried to plead, but my tongue turned to dust. Chains slithered from the ground, coiling around my ankles, pulling me toward the pit. Above, the sky cracked open, raining hot ash that hissed on my skin. The boy watched, calm, unblinking. Behind him, 1,000 children gathered, thin, radiant, clutching their own scraps of cloth. Their eyes burned not with hatred, but with unbearable knowing. As the chains dragged me closer to the moor, I realized this was only antechamber, a threshold to torments yet unimagined. My screams joined the storm, indistinguishable from the others, and over it all rose a single quiet word, spoken by a choir of the dead. Remember. I had once believed night had no hold over me. Now I dwell in a place where night is eternal, and the only light is the glow of unending flames. Here I will walk the ruins forever, stripe of cloth pressed to a heart that cannot cease, learning each moment anew that oblivion is merciful and memory is hell. I remember.